Hey guys, welcome to the Got Fishing podcast. I got my good friend here, Kory Scoran, with us. Kory, how are you, bud?
Good, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Kory's a good friend of mine. Been a buddy of mine for well over a decade. Great guy. Been wanting to have him on the show for a long time because he has an amazing story. So let's just kind of get right to it. And one of the things about Scorzy is he's a professional athlete. Spent a good portion of his life playing hockey, and also is just a diehard badass angler. And so I thought it'd be great to have him on the show, tell us a little bit about his story. And also, like we talked about with this podcast, we were going to dive into kind of what it's like, living life, whether it's pulling yourself out of a jam, or whether it's, climbing that ladder to become a professional athlete in Kory's case, or owning your own business, and, the fact that things do get in our way, and there's things that we can be doing to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with the right people, we got the right messages going on, and just kind of learning from our past and applying it to today. So, Kory, really appreciate you being on the show, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and thanks for the intro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're from Canada, born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Grew up playing hockey.
Yeah, the frozen tundra. Started at 3 years old. Got dragged out there with my older brother, and started on the outdoor rinks. Pretty much winter 9-10 months out of the year up there. So we're on the ice playing hockey, street hockey, floor hockey, ball hockey. It kind of consumed my life as a youngster, that's for sure.
I think a lot of people just assume that, those guys growing up in Canada are, playing hockey are automatically going to be good and, kind of carry on. There's no surprise that, you're going on to colleges and playing in the pros. But the reality of it is that the competition is stiff. I mean, it's your guys' sport. Everybody's playing hockey up there.
Yeah, exactly. The more you play, the more competition. So, it's kind of the culture up there. Everybody kind of plays hockey. This kind of thing you do growing up, and for me, it consumed me more than all the other sports that I played. I mean, I played basketball, soccer, baseball, badminton, you name it. I played it, but as I got older, kind of hockey just consumed me more and more, and my appetite for it, and it just was one of those goals in life that I just couldn't let go of.
So you're a multi-sport athlete.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I played everything. Like I said, badminton all the way through ninth grade, provincial champion, the whole deal. I mean, I was committed. Volleyball, basketball. Yeah, loved it. Doubles champ. Yeah, me and Cam Kozakowski. Shout out to Cam. We tore it up 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. But yeah, it was an absolute blast. But I was a big believer in being a well-rounded athlete, and I just figured that the more sports I played, it was just going to help me with hockey, with my hand-eye coordination and my foot speed and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I played box lacrosse growing up. That was a good crossover sport as I got older. I just found that as to be the well-rounded athlete, for me, hockey, it's kind of a combination of all the sports. So, I didn't want to do the burnout factor either by playing all year round. And I just found great camaraderie with other sports and met so much more people because, being able to play in all these other sports, and it was an absolute blast.
So here's a professional athlete that made it all the way. And, I think today in a lot of sports you hear about these kids, kind of staying singular on their sport from a very young age. And I think that you talk to the people that have been there, done that, having some diversity to your game, whether it be in sports or in life, is pretty important.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, you can't get everything from your sport, or you just can't train that way all the time. So being able to get hand-eye coordination playing badminton or tennis, or foot speed with soccer and basketball and stuff like that, and lacrosse, very visually the same with lanes, looking for lanes and stuff like that, and pick and goes and all that kind of stuff that we have in hockey in the contact. So I just feel like you're still getting that fun and that development just in a different way. So it kind of helps with the burnout factor. And, for me growing up, when kind of summer rolled around, the hockey bag went in the attic and all the other equipment came out for the summer. And I think it kept it fresh for me and it kept that drive alive where I didn't feel that burnout. That's for sure.
Awesome. So speaking of, when you threw that bag in the closet in the summer and kind of took a break, I mean, both you and your brother were pretty diehard athletes. Mom and Dad took you out into the woods, and tell us a little bit about those experiences growing up.
My earliest memories, I mean, summer rolled around and parents' vacation was saved up, and it was at least 2 weeks gone with the van and the camper. Earliest memories are with my brother and the dog and my parents in 1976 Vandura with the rabbit fur on the roof and, the velvet curtains in the bed in the back, pulling the pop-up camper. And, we always went down to Lake Bronson, Minnesota, and we would just spend weeks at a time down there, come home, do laundry. We'd have friends with kids, and we would just go, all over Ontario, Lake of the Woods. We spent a lot of time out there doing group camping, and it was just being in the outdoors with nature as kids, being able to ride your bikes around in the bush and play flashlight tag at night. And we did a little bit of fishing here and there as kids messing around, but it was just experiencing the outdoors like that with your buddies and, getting that freedom as a kid when you're camping as mom and dad are preoccupied and you get to kind of explore a little bit. It was awesome. A lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for nothing,
No video games, no cell phones, just out there having fun.
Just out there having fun. Yeah, there was, I think, Nintendo at the time, and it wasn't even a thought of taking it anywhere. And obviously no phones or nothing like that. It was our bikes and our imaginations. And, it could just take us anywhere. And it was an absolute blast. I mean, we would go for hours on bike rides or climbing trees or building forts or you name it. It was an absolute blast, and it was something that we looked forward to every summer as a kid growing up, and really grew my love for the outdoors and the animals we got to see and the birds and doing a lot of stuff and going on moose watching and stuff like that as a kid. It was amazing. It really grew my love for the outdoors. So later in life, where we are now, which I'm sure we'll get to, it just it really ignited that passion after hockey was over.
All right. I think the message here, and we'll get to it, is just, how important it is for parents and adults to be getting their kids out, and experiencing these things. It's huge, and the impact is lifelong.
Yeah, it really is. I think, at a young age, if you can get them outside and get them, loving the outdoors, I really think it does something to them and keeps that passion alive as they grow older. I mean, life gets in the way growing up, sports, especially as kids. I mean, I was a pretty much the perfect case for it. Hockey season was from September till March. What's hunting season?
Right.
What's great fishing? It's kind of right in the middle of everything. So, it's all about the sacrifices you have to make to get where you can go in life. And it's still at some points, I think my parents did a great job with the balance of, the hockey, the dedication. Okay, there's some drive here. We're going to support that. But, hey, we also need family time. We need to get out. We need to experience life because there's more than just, hockey, because at some point it's going to end. So what else is there going to be? So I think I learned a lot of values and life lessons in the, growing up like that out in the woods and being able to go camping with families and friends and that kind of stuff for sure.
Well, back to hockey, because it's such a huge part of your story. So you're still in Canada. You're living summers out, running around the woods with your brother and your family. But during the season, it's real. And you're a good player up in a place that not easy to stand out because everybody, like we were saying earlier, stands out. You played juniors up there, and that ended up leading to a deal down here in America, which we'll get to. But real quick, I remember one of the stories that you told me that it wasn't always easy. I mean, you were a great player. You worked your butt off to get where you got. But I remember, tell me a little bit about. I know I always talk about how hockey. It's not just a physically tough sport. I mean, it's mentally tough. And I remember you grew up, for those people who don't know hockey, there's forwards that are offense, that are there to score, and then there's defense to protect the net, make sure that you don't get scored on. And you grew up playing offense. I mean, you were a top dog, center. I don't remember exactly what position you played, but you were a top offenseman, and then you got on a team, and they moved you to defense. Walk us through that, guys. I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah, my parents still have friends that are mad about that, which is hilarious. But I think things happen for a reason. I'm a big believer in certain doors open and certain doors close. And I mean, I don't know. At that age, I guess they used to keep score every once in a while. I mean, it was a little different back then, but 100-something goals as a 10-year-old. There's politics involved at every age of sports, and next thing you know, we're putting Kory on defense. And this is something that I thank my parents to this day is, hey, they're not the coach. They're not out there putting their time in. So they just kept their mouth shut and said, okay, Kory's playing defense. If he comes home and says he wants to quit hockey, then maybe we'll have a conversation. But until then, the coach has made the decision. We're not the ones out there. So they just sat back and it took me to where it was today. So for me, I think it was meant to be. You never know what would happen the other way, but I think, it was meant to be this way. So it got me to where I am in life now. And I attribute a big part of that to my parents just being parents at that time, just sitting back and let the coaches make the decision. And probably wasn't easy for them to swallow watching, but it also didn't stop me. I think it helped me become more of an offensive defenseman, having that offensive mindset as a youngster. And still I was able to carry that to my defensive game and play offense too. So it just made me a more round player, is what I think. But yeah, it was definitely one of those turning points that you look back on that, really which way it could have went, and then, to talk about another one, come to AAA hockey. First time I ever been cut for a team. Was not expecting that at all. Thought I was a shoo-in for the team, showing up for Bantam AAA hockey. And, but, next thing you know, cut from the team. Now I got a decision to make. Do I go back and play with my buddies? Or do I try and play on this? I got approached by the Bantam 2 team, which was, you're allowed 3 15-year-olds to play with the 14s, and at first I'm like, no, I'm not playing with 14-year-olds, and then I started thinking, who are these guys? Who am I playing with? And made the decision, to leave my group of friends and go play with these other kids that from all over the city that I didn't know before, that I've been grown up playing against. Right. And ended up being one of the next best decisions I ever made. We ended up winning the city championship. 4 guys from that team ended up playing professional hockey, one in the NHL for 10 years. It was a phenomenal team. And, one of those teams that you remember forever kind of thing. And great guys on the team. And so that was another turning point in my life where, I look back and, my parents, they walked me through that decision, but it was my decision, and they kind of just pros and cons and sat me down and had me, work through that decision in life and where I wanted to be at. And I think, God on my side, just leading me the right way. It was probably one of the decisions that I made that turned out to be, I got a lot of exposure that year. Next thing you know, I'm playing midget AAA as a 16-year-old, and then next thing you know, I'm playing juniors. So definitely catapulted my career in a way I never would have thought of. And, just a decision that I made that was really tough at that age that we talked about, that me and you have talked about before, is like, it talks about hard work and what it takes to get to that next level. But hard work isn't just always head down, grinding on the ice, lifting weights. It's hard work to leave your friends. It's hard work to make those decisions as a young kid at 15 to leave your friends and go play with a bunch of kids you don't know, and what you're leaving and all the good time they're going to have. And when you go to hang out, there's going to be inside jokes you're missing out on. Like, that's hard work as you got to make these decisions,
Humility is hard work, to humble yourself, to go down an age group and play with these guys. And, I think so many people think, it's always got to be moving forward. We always got to be stepping up. But in life, regrouping, taking a step back sometimes can really catapult you forward. But if you just keep shoving a square peg in a round hole and trying to make it work, it doesn't always work out well. And to take a step back like you did, have some humility, have some great, guidance and leadership from your parents, but then to take that, guidance and leadership and really apply it at such a young age, that's huge. It's badass.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were unbelievable at that point because, they could have did, the AAA hockey was really expensive. It was something that I was going to have to get a summer job for, pay for half, and we were going to figure it out. But that wasn't going to deter them to push me towards the AA or the high school hockey, which would have been a lot more affordable, way less travel, super easy, would have been the comfortable thing to do, But they were happy with whatever decision I wanted to make, and we sat down. I still remember coming home one day, and the coach was in the driveway for that AAA team, telling me how bad he wanted me to play. And, it was awesome that he wanted like that, but I couldn't get out of my head 14-year-olds. I'm 15. Like, what's the difference, I walked in that locker room, and half the kids had chest hair. It was like, oh, my God. So it made no difference. And they were absolutely amazing families, amazing kids, lifelong friendships. So it's just those turning points in life that, I look back and to this day just thank my parents for, the letting me talk it out and, looking at it like a young adult at 15, which is tough to do when you have emotions and friends and school and all that kind of stuff involved, that, just having me look at, well, what's your goals? What do you want to do? There's different roads to take, but this is your path. This is going to get you where you want to go a little bit quicker. And so it was ultimately a decision I made. And, in no time became really good friends with the guys on that team.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny how life works if we just let life work. So catapulting from that,
definitely.
obviously you made some great decisions. You played high-end junior hockey. You went into your defensive position quite well, and now you're down in the United States grabbing a scholarship at a great D1 school. From there, you end up playing pros. Fill in the blanks a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, again, another decision. Leaving home at 17, back home at 18. It's you can go to the bars. There's a lot of life starts happening at 18 where I left home to go live in a farming town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I left home and go live in a farming town of 5,000 people in Millis, Saskatchewan. They were an unbelievable hockey town and an unbelievable league that I felt was going to give me the best opportunity to get a scholarship. The team prepared me super well for the opportunity and what I needed to do to get there, schooling wise, and also on the ice. And the Billet family I lived with was absolutely amazing for 3 years. So that was that next decision I think prepared me and set me up to be in the right spot to get that scholarship to Lake Superior State. Now I'm living in the States, kind of living that dream, college athlete, Division I. And again, just a huge learning lesson there. I mean, never really worked out like I worked out when I went to college, and I shocked the system, and I learned some lessons there, being a student athlete, having to balance college and school and fun and all that kind of stuff. So again, I think my freshman year we came in with 16 freshmen, and I think we graduated with 12. So 4 or 5 guys between those 4 years were gone. Couldn't take the grind or didn't like it or whatever it was, and gave up that opportunity. And I mean, I'd love to talk to those guys now and see how they feel about kicking themselves in the butt now. And just one of those. I just didn't want to have that regret. What I coulda, shoulda, and also going back home and looking at my buddies in the face, going, I just messed up an opportunity that I know anybody would have loved to have. So just another one of those times. And the next thing you know, college is ending, and I'm getting recruited to come out here to beautiful Boise, Idaho. And I stepped off that plane and looked at those mountains, and something told me I'm going to be here forever. Really did. Yeah, it's crazy. And, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, tell us a little bit about the experience, because, again, hockey players travel all over the place. I mean, you guys are always landing in East Coast, West Coast, and you hear a lot about people, landing and playing for the Steelheads, which I wore in honor of you today. Yeah. But it's a great team, great location, and you've made the best of it. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, so I come from the prairies, right? You watch your dog run away for 3 days; it's so flat. So when I stepped off that plane, I went to college in Michigan. So same thing, beautiful area right on Lake Superior. But I never really been in the mountains like this. So when I stepped off that plane and they were right there, and those foothills were right there, I just couldn't believe it. And then just to get to know the city and the people in the city, and then the organization just treats their players amazing, and it still does to this day, flying everywhere. And just a first-class organization. They put us up in great apartments, and so I just fell in love with the town and the city and the beauty of it, and just the access, which I learned after my first couple of years, is the access to recreation, the outdoor recreation that is just unbelievable out here, that I fell in love with. And I ended up meeting my wife near the end of my first year. We kind of had a little bit of an extended season because we won the Kelly Cup that year, so we were here till June. So it was an unbelievable year, and I mean, that just set the hook in me to be here in Boise. That's for sure.
Awesome. So, yeah, you touched on it. You won the Cup. Actually going to have another buddy of ours and ex-professional hockey player, Jeremy, on. You and Jeremy won the Kelly Cup with the Steelheads. And he retired shortly after. You stayed on for a few more years. And actually, Jeremy introduced you and I up in McCall, Idaho, and that's kind of where our relationship got started, and also steelhead fishing.
Yeah, we're going on trips. So when I came out of college, it was Millsy's last year. He was a team captain, and right away his wife, Darlene, their family were unbelievable to us rookies coming in out of college, treated us with such respect. And I came back and signed for the next year, and we had his retirement party here, and he was the hockey director for the program. So, we were, in the summers when I was staying, we were, I was coming coaching the kids and stuff. And then, he's like, let's get into some fly fishing. I got a guy you need to meet. You need to go steelheading. Next thing you know, I'm getting sliced off elk salami in the back of his truck, and it was just some of the best stuff I ever had in my life. And I don't think we've ever looked back since. You know, it was one of the best trips ever. I still remember it to this day. It was absolutely amazing, and I mean, I think it's been one of the best friendships that I've had, and you know, and we've done so much together, and I can't thank you enough for all the stuff you've introduced me to, whether it be hunting, other people that are into hunting, fishing, and just the some of the secret spots of Idaho that you got tucked away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and I mean, obviously, God works in mysterious ways if we let him. And yeah, I knew right off the bat when I met you that day with Jeremy that we were cut from the same cloth, and you had a lot to offer my life, which we'll get to here with hockey and my boy and some of the stuff that you've brought into our lives. But yeah, you took to fishing. I mean, I'm assuming like you took to hockey. I mean, you just went off the deep end. And
Yeah.
I was having a tough time there for a while, keeping pace with you. Every day you were down in the Boise River fishing. Every day I was seeing pictures. You were showing up to work early. You were going down the river afterwards. What happened? Got done with hockey and just decided.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, and I probably didn't touch on this when I was a kid. I mean, I think there's some part of me that has some kind of OCD, and I was just lucky enough. It was directed in sports and wanting to figure out what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and do it better. So when I stopped playing hockey, man, that's still something that's real in life that I got to figure out. That drive that I had, the passion for competition, the camaraderie, the self-drive, like all that kind of stuff. Like, what am I going to do with that now? I know my wife doesn't want me to at home with that, so what am I going to do? I needed a release. And when we got into the fly fishing, I mean, I grew up doing like, spin fishing here and there and stuff like that, catfish and whatever. But this fly fishing, it's so, for one, the places you go, you're in the middle of this beautiful river, you just hear the water, you're just in your own element, your own zone. That really resonated with me as growing up as a kid. And then the second part of that was, I mean, the water that I grew up in is a little muddy, a little brown, a little, in the muddy rivers. And now I'm in this pristine river in these mountains, and I can see the fish swimming by, and I got this rod in my hand, and I'm moving the whole time. It's not stand there and stare at it. You're moving. So as far as my OCD, I'm moving, right? So I really like the fact that I was moving. I was walking up and down the river. And once I started learning, and this is the part about the fly fishing community that I love, especially when it's tied in with the hockey community and how I met you through Millsy, and we'll get into your boy and stuff. That, I mean, it was easy to go out with guys that were like-minded, we could have a good time, we could make fun of each other, and it was like you were in the locker room, but you were on the river. And it was an unbelievable way to learn fishing. Being around guys like that, being around you like that, having that camaraderie, because there was no pressure, it was just all fun. There was no frustration, and then it just became, like you said, like once you get the hang of it a little bit, and then I just had to start going on my own so I could learn, because it's just one of those things where until you do it on your own, am I really doing it? When you're not telling me where to put my bug and not to do this and not to do that, and then so once I started doing that. I was just hooked. I mean, I remember the first time to this day under the Highway 21 bridge where I caught first rainbow on my own, because I heard the water, I read it, I looked at the bug, I seen the current, and I cooked them, I caught them, and I was looking around to see if anybody saw it because I was so proud of myself. Like that feeling, that moment, I feel like that every time I catch a fish, just like every good shift in hockey. And so it just really has taken over that OCD drive, even the competitiveness. Like, it's me and that fish. Like, I will fish a hole with a dry fly, even though he's eating nymphs, until I get him to come up to get to that dry fly, because I want to fish a dry fly that day, and that's what I want him to do. You know what I mean? Like, I get like that, and I love it, and I wouldn't change it. And 7 hours goes by, and so it's just one of those things that I just went overboard. And that's, I think, what helped me get to that next level in hockey was being that into it. I mean, most kids are going home and picking up the video game, and Mom's calling me in for supper. I'm like, no, I got to hit the crossbar 3 more times in a row. And there goes twice, and I missed, and now I'm running down the back lane to get the ball again. And I got to start all over. And, it's just little things that, the fishing part just filled that gap like it was meant to be.
Yeah. It's a great hobby. It's definitely a great hobby to get into for sure. We have lots of stories that we can tell on all the fish that we've caught and mountain lakes and the rivers and the streams. But one that I wasn't actually there for was when you went mousing. 2, 3 in the morning. I mean, you and I have done it,
Yeah.
but on this one, you smashed a couple of beauties. Tell us about that. I mean, mousing it.
Unbelievable. 2, 3 in the morning in big, thick brush in a beautiful ground-fed creek, spring-fed creek, and moose everywhere. So it's pretty eerie because there's moose everywhere. You can hear them banging and crashing into the woods, and you can't have your light on, right? You don't want to scare the fish. So we got these big, giant mice, and we're throwing them in there. And, I mean, it's just dead quiet out there. You can just hear the crickets. And you can hear them just come.
To get it across the river, just kind of give the listeners an idea. How are you presenting this mouse, and what's happening?
So we're looking for seams, right? We're looking for the water comes in and meets the seams because so the guy that I went with is obsessed with the mice. He's actually caught mice and thrown them in the river to see where they swim in their pattern. So he's found that they swim to a seam and then carry the seam out until they can get to where they're going and just float the seam instead of swimming against the current. Yeah, so you're just hucking this mouse as far as you can where you know these seams are because you've been there during the day, and then you can just feel your line drifting to the seam, and then you slowly just start stripping it back. And two things happen. One, you just hear a giant gulp, and then you just set that sucker and it's on. Or two, you're going to hear a big smack. And what they say is they're coming up and they're hitting it, trying to stun it, and then they come back and you just hear the gulp, and your line just goes tight and the fight is on. And that night, I had 3 on, landed 2. One was 23 inches, one was 24 inches with the big hook jaw. I've shown you some of the pictures and videos, and I mean, I'm still like, I mean, I felt like it was a steelhead the way I was holding it. I mean, it was unbelievable. And the fight, you know, I was on a 6-weight, and it took about 10 minutes to bring him in. And as soon as he's on, now the headlights can come on, and the excitement and the hoot and the hollering and getting him in the net was unbelievable. And same thing, like I missed him first, and then I know I missed him again, and I had one on and I missed him, and then I landed the next 2, and it was one of the most epic trips. Like I said, 3 in the morning, middle of nowhere, on this beautiful place, surrounded by moose. Like, yeah, it was epic, absolutely epic.
You and I, obviously, we went back a month and a half later after you caught those, and it's not as easy as people think. I mean, obviously it's in the dark. You're kind of blind casting to, like you said, waters that you're familiar with, but there is that on that night. I remember getting that smack. That smack's not a hit. It's like you said, it's them just coming up and hitting it, and you have a tendency, like I did, to set that hook right off the bat because you think it is getting eaten. Where there's the gulp or the smack, and if you get smacked, you got to wait for the gulp.
Yes, and that's the hardest part, and that's what I must have got smacked 2 or 3 times before I even got one to take it because I was just, I mean, especially in the dark. There's something about what's going on. There's moose around. All of a sudden, that comes out of nowhere. Like your nerves, everything just yanks that sucker out of the water. And your buddy's sitting there going, "No, leave it in there." Yeah. So it takes some getting used to. That's for sure.
It is eerie. I remember when we were walking through that brush and we got to that little canal, and remember that brown that ended up splashing. I mean, literally. Both you and I are over 6 feet tall, and I had water splash in my face. That was freaking epic. Big old browns in there too.
Yeah, and they have huge browns in that creek. So it was, I mean, that thing must have been just sitting right by the edge because as soon as we walked up, it gave the biggest splash. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just startling because it could have been a moose. It could have been, you're middle of nowhere, and it's dark, and super cool.
That was adventure fishing for sure. I love that.
That definitely was, yeah.
Speaking of it, we got to get back there soon.
Yeah, we do, especially now, this time of year.
So one of the things that I really enjoy about, our adventures, whether we're out on the razors, the e-bikes, we obviously do a ton of fishing. We do a ton of elk hunting together. you and I talk a lot about, we live amazing lives, no question about it. I was born and raised in Montana and had the opportunity to do a lot of the things that people come to Idaho and Montana to do. I grew up doing it. You took an amazing path, became a professional athlete, won a cup. But now, both of our lives, we're trying to take that and give back. And one of the conversations you and I have all the time is when we're heading on our adventures is how can we be sharing this? How can we be sharing this opportunity with others? And I want to real quickly talk about, right now your job really with the city of Boise as director of hockey is really a service job. I mean, you're there working with kids, helping develop them. Touch on that real quick. That was kind of after your life with hockey, you get into fishing, but you also have to have a job.
Yeah. And we talked about before doors opening and closing, and here's another opportunity where I was approached by the GM and he asked if, I'd be interested in this position. We built a relationship over the few years of me playing, living in town, volunteering in the summers, and it was this, I was actually at lunch with the new coach working on a contract, and I got a voicemail from him, and it was just one of those steps where it's like I was 31 at the time. I'm like, do I want to have hockey push me out or do I want to leave on my own? And this door was opening, so maybe this door is opening for a reason because this one's slowly starting to close. And I just went for it, and it was, again, one of the next best decisions I ever made, and I was able to get in with the city of Boise. And my goal is, especially in a town like Boise where hockey is a pretty small community, was just to grow the sport, get kids to fall in love with the sport and hockey for life. Because all at some point we're all in a beer league. Wayne Gretzky's in a beer league. I'm in a beer league. Somebody's in a beer league. It's the love of the game for life. And I truly believe if you can get kids to fall in love with the sport, it teaches them so many life lessons. The locker room, the camaraderie in there is just something special about it. It's just something close to being like a family on a team. All those things that sports teach you and stuff. And I just think, hockey is just a great example of that. And I wanted to really grow the sport and make an impact and doing it the right way because, there's different thoughts on how to grow sports and how to grow kids and athletes and the way development works. And I think there's been a lot of research and stuff done these days where I think USA Hockey is doing it the right way. And I really have dove into that, and it's shown in our numbers because the retention is there. Because hockey is one of those sports that if you start playing and you're not getting any better, it's not fun to keep being out there. So we want to teach these kids, it's not like walking. There's so many elements to hockey. So, the skating part is so important, as you've learned, and your boy is obviously excelled at because he's amazing. He's got amazing speed, especially for a big man. It's unreal to see. So what it can do for these kids and these athletes. So again, just wanting to put my stamp on that in the town that gave me so much. I mean, my wife, I got a kid now, and I just want to give back to the hockey community. Hockey is still giving me my house, my wife, my friends, these opportunities that I just feel like I owe the sport so much, and the town that gave me such opportunities and the city that did. So I just feel like I need to give back and grow this sport and the opportunities for these kids to hopefully go play college or pro, or at least meet the people and make these lifelong friends that they're going to have forever. And even the parents getting together. And I mean, I'm sure you can talk to any parents and they got stories of the road trips, and it wasn't about the kids winning the tournament. It was about what was happening in the hotel or whatever, so that's what it's all about. And the high level stuff will come, the training that, I love that side of it too. But for me, the main focus is definitely to get as many kids playing hockey and fall in love with the sport as possible. And it's been 9 years, I'm almost 10 years in now, and we're really starting to explode. So it's been great to see.
Yeah, done an amazing job. But real quick, I just want to go back and touch again, because again, this, I want the listeners of this podcast to know that on these awesome journeys, there are decisions that are being made along the way that are helping to help kind of sculpt how your life turns out. And through just the half an hour we've been talking, there's been 2 or 3 times when you could have taken a right or a left, and the right, stay in junior hockey playing with kids your own age, or staying a professional with the Steelheads and, not having to get a real job yet and still continuing to live that life. And it's funny how often the decision that we think is the more humbling one, or the one that, I'm not going to be as cool, or I might not make as much money, or it's kind of the decision about here and now versus what's best for me in the long haul. And, the answer is often there we just don't pay attention to it. We're often just so geared to climb or to I don't know what the word is, but kind of ignore. A lot of us pray, a lot of us are looking for direction in life, and it's right there. And I like how in a few of these instances, instead of playing hockey, you're sitting there with the coach, going to play another year, assistant captain. Everybody loves Scorsy, or go get a real job and start working with kids and giving back. And you obviously made the decision to hang up the skates per se on the pro career and pick up the skates with working with kids, and have made a huge impact on the youth here in Boise, Idaho, and particularly my son. And just to tell a quick story on that, he too, he plays in a very high level juniors. For those that know hockey, he plays in the Knoll, and it's a big deal. And he was put on the wire last year, and not necessarily cut, but when you put on the wire, it is the coach kind of not necessarily wanting you on the team. That team, he's wanting to see who might be interested in you. And he was faced with the decision to continue down the Knoll, or take a step back and go play for that NA3 team. And the advice that you gave him was huge, and just to kind of the same experience. They went and won the cup. He ended up being the MVP of that. And then, got phone calls the very next day for the Knoll, and, he's back in there excelling. Had a couple games last weekend, was playing amazing. He's hit his stride. And again, I'm proud to have him surrounded by people who have walked that path, have made that decision that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily make. I think there's a lot of parents, and I appreciate getting to be around guys like you too, because as a parent, it's, so many of us parents are stuck with that pride of yesterday, and I want to be able to tell my friends, wow, my kid's still in the Knoll, versus, my kid went down a league. He's playing in the NA3, and I'm just as proud of him. And to see what this, what it ended up doing for him was huge. And just really feel very lucky to have myself, but also my kids, to be able to be around people like you and Millsy and some of these other guys that not only are physically tough, but have made some mentally tough decisions and had it really work out well for you.
Well, I appreciate that. And to your boy, to Little Oak, I mean, he's had the work ethic since day one. And when you see that drive as an athlete, when you see that drive in a youngster, you just want to help foster that as much as possible. And he's such a cool kid. And I think he's taken the right advice and he's listened, which not a kids do too. And same with parents. Yeah. My door is always open in my office, and it's amazing how many people don't come in and ask questions where that's all I want to do is help them make the right decision. And so I just think that you've asked the right questions, and you've sat back and listened to some things, and maybe bit your tongue when you've heard some stuff that maybe you didn't want to hear, but it needed to be heard, or whatever it was. There's so many different things that, in the decisions that happen in life, and it doesn't always go. Everybody's journey is so different, especially in hockey. I mean, it's football, football, there's, pretty direct paths. You got to go high school, you go college, you go NFL. I mean, hockey, there's Europe, there's all these different junior leagues, there's colleges, there's different level of colleges, and you can still be in the lowest junior league and make it all the way to the NHL. There's so many examples of that. And the development for hockey, it's such a late development sport. And that's why I love what the decision your boy made last year to go down, rip it up, and then get brought back up and keep grinding. And I mean, that's the work ethic that these coaches and everything look at, that we try to instill in our kids, and hopefully they see that and make those decisions when they're young men now. And you can tell them all you want, but it's still up to them at that point, right?
Well, and again, kind of to bring back the fishing aspect of it, just like you were saying, hockey, there's so many different paths you can take, and that's so much like life. There isn't just one direction to the top of the mountain. There's many, many paths. And just because you might feel like you're on the wrong path today, it could be the exact path that you need to be on. And we see that most people who do make it to the top do run into some adversity, and it's persevering that adversity. I mean, you hear that cliche, it's all about the journey, but it honestly couldn't be more true. And anybody who's made it has those journeys or those hurdles that got in their way along the journey that made them who they are, or put them in the direction. Like you were saying, professional hockey players that played in the B League, or were cut from their team and then went on to have a pro career for 10 years. So you just don't know. It's about staying in the game and staying hard.
That's it. That's exactly it. You never know which way life's going to take you. And I just think if you have a goal and you have a dream and you keep working for it, You just can't let anybody stop you. You know, whether it's getting cut or whether it's not getting whatever you want. I mean, it's very tough out there, and I just think having these sports at a young age and surrounding yourself with the right people and to support the right people. I mean, especially with kids these days, there's so many hard decisions to make out there. When we talk about working hard, that's such a broad statement because there's so many things in life that they got to work hard at these days. There's so many distractions, and it's so competitive now. I mean, I just feel like all the sports are under a microscope these days, and it's just so competitive that. Man, it's tough to really keep their drive going. And I mean, it's good to see when you can see a kid with the drive that your boy has that, you know, he's pushing forward and it's fun. It's fun. You know, it's fun to watch, especially a guy that can't do it anymore. You know, I got to live through him now. So it's fun to watch, you know.
Yeah. Well, I
also think.
Go ahead. Finish it.
Oh, no, go. Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to kind of segue that into, you know, I don't think that there's any, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, these kids that are really exceeding expectations in their sports. They're also heavily involved in the outdoors. Millamuk's kids, my kid. Maybe the list goes on and on of the kids that have actually gone on and done something with their sport. Each one of them has a love and a passion for the outdoors that their parents got them into. And so one of the things that I think that, as you and I talked about in the truck talks that we've had, how can we be bringing kids into this? You know, one of the things that we've been doing is taking kids fishing. And taking a lot of these kids, you know, Cam and Oki and Connor, and taking them to some of our fishing holes and seeing the excitement that they have getting out there. Because, again, like you said, fishing is so much like hockey. I mean, there's so many things you can change up to make yourself better, different bugs, different depths, different styles, different casting. It's been really fun to introduce these kids to this sport and to be able to give back in that way.
Oh, it sure has. Watching these kids hooting and hollering when they're catching fish is absolutely amazing, especially when you're the one who could put them on the spot. When you put in the work over the last few years to figure it out, and then you can put a kid like that on them and get to see the smile on their faces. It's an absolute blast. And like I said, I'm a big believer in karma and giving back, and I just feel I've been very blessed in my life. So, you know, whether it's the outdoors, whether it's hockey, whatever it is. But I also think it's part of that work-life balance, and I think that's something that you've done a great job of installing in your kids, that my parents installed in me, that Millsy's done with his. Is, I mean, there's work and there's play. You work hard, you play hard, you know, and I think there's a fine balance of that, and I think that's what keeps everything fresh. You got to miss something enough to go back and want it, right? So I do think there's a big, and for me, the outdoors, I mean, you just feel it in the soul. It does something to you. There's a recharge that happens. So, I mean, I just really think that getting the kids outside in the outdoors and you know, the more kids we can get out there, hopefully we can help whatever, you know, it's that therapy they're getting, you know, that I get.
I think a cool story is just this summer, a lot of these kids that I've had the opportunity to work with on the fishing, that you've had the opportunity to work with on the skating, I think there was like 4 or 5 of them that have really done different flavors of well. Some of them have D1 scholarships, and they're off doing that thing right now. Some of them are still in juniors. Some of them are off, you know, getting their educations. But all of them have a love for fishing. And to watch those guys, I think they went on like a 4 or 5 day kind of adventure fishing trip, you know, into the backcountry of Idaho, all on their own, you know, and you know, just seems like yesterday they're just little guys, you know, in their first pair of waders out there fishing, and now here they are throwing packs on and going and catching giant bull trout and just, you know, eating MREs and sleeping in the dirt and filtering water and all the stuff that we showed them. And then to see the pictures, it felt great. Not just to see the big fish, but to see these guys out there doing that.
Oh, I couldn't have been more prouder and jealous at the same time.
No doubt.
You know?
No doubt.
To not see them out there. Yeah, I was not there. I was so mad. But to see that camaraderie with those guys that we watched grow up playing hockey. I remember, you know, Truey. I remember him in the hockey camps, working with Millsy's hockey camps, you know, and all these kids watching them grow up and seeing them go like that into the mountains, and unbelievable. Yeah, so cool to see. And that's the hope that I have for the next generation, is the kids that are doing that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, I think that's why, you know, hopefully the people that are listening to this, you know, see just how important it is. I mean, you might be out there doing this stuff, and I see this all the time. I talk to my kid about it. We'll be steelhead fishing on the river, looking up and down the banks. There's hardly another kid out there. We'll be out at a trailhead, getting ready to head in for a hunt, and there's a couple guys getting out of the trucks, but there's just not the kids. Like in our group, you see kids piling off the back. Latrell, huge indicate, right from hockey, skating right out into the outdoors, carving arrows and learning how to make torches out of sap and catching fish with hand lines and, really amazing stuff. So I think that it's so important that we get these kids. We always say, all these kids are on video games because we're letting them. I mean, we're flat out letting them do that stuff. We're not taking them into the outdoors and introducing them into this. And I could tell you firsthand, as you're seeing it, it's effective. I mean, it can really change their lives and bring something in. Life's not easy, as both you and I know. And this is a great place to go get regrounded, whether it's fishing, hunting, biking, just being outdoors with your buddies, is a really powerful deal.
It is, and I've been lucky. I've had the opportunity to watch you guys raise your kids, and now I'm having one who's 2.5 years old, and I got to see how you guys did it, and I mean, I get to watch you guys. I got to walk behind you guys as you're hunting with the sun setting, and you're walking into unbelievable stuff that I just can't wait for my little guy. And we already got him started, taking him out to the mining claim and doing some camping and getting him in the razors on the e-bikes, and he's a little go-getter. So I'm just super excited for that part of life, and it was awesome to be able to watch you guys do that and see how you did it, and just looking forward to that part of life too, and having that balance with him.
Well, I'm looking forward to being a part of his life, and the turkey hunting and getting him involved in it and playing a part like you were able to play in my kid's life with hockey. I'm looking forward to playing a part in Crew's life, just getting him out there hunting and fishing and enjoying the outdoors. And of course, the skating lesson if he needs.
Whatever. Yeah, you can help him with his stride for sure.
Hey. I was a coach, just for the.
Yeah, I know you're certified.
For the V League. I think one of the things you and I share is that knowing, at least, I haven't known it my whole life. Certainly something that, I grew to understand as I persevered through some of my challenges, had some of my mentors explain to me. It's in the Bible. It's in a lot of these self-help books. But it's on a ton of podcasts. I think people hear it. But then kind of disregard it as, it sounds like a good idea. Maybe if there's someone standing on the corner, I can hand out $1. But that service to others and the impact that it has on our lives. Talk to me a little bit about just how that's been such a huge part of your life and what it means to you to be there for others and to have that mentality of serving others equals a happy life.
I'm a big believer in, like we kind of touched on earlier, karma and just giving back and sit back and look at it. You can sit back and look at your life, and everybody's got hard times. But when you pull up to that red light and you look over and you see that person who's really holding that cardboard sign, it just does something to you. And especially with kids. For me, especially with kids, and if we can have some kind of effect with kids, and I'm not a life coach, I'm not, but my experiences with athletics and drive and some of the stuff that I've been through and what athletics has done for me, because there's points in my life where who knows where I would have been if I wouldn't have had hockey to fall back on, to have that carrot for my parents to dangle, to be like, hey, if you don't pull your head out of your butt, you're not going to have this, So if I can get a kid into hockey where that takes his attention off of something else and his focus on making himself better for hockey, for fishing, for razor, whatever it can be, I want to be able to do that. And give back, because I just feel life's too short. And honestly, listening to the podcast, listening to all this stuff, it is about giving back. But everybody has different ways of giving back. Yeah. I'm not the kind of guy that can just write checks to charities or whatever. But I have the opportunity to have a few cool toys that I would love, and cool friends to do cool stuff with that I would love to share with some kids that maybe don't get that opportunity. I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to to fly across the world and be by yourself, so I get that. So, to have that camaraderie and have that ability to have somebody to chat with I think it's a big deal. And I'm a big believer in what goes around comes around. So. Yeah,
well said. I too, I think that's, we'll talk more about it. You'll be a guest, a reoccurring guest on this as we talk about the different adventures. But a couple of the big things that you and I have done. A lot of people out there. I like how you said that. Everybody serves differently. I think what's important is just understanding that implementing service to others in your life is truly the key to happiness. If you don't believe me, test it out. And then go serve somebody. Don't tell anybody about it, and see your level of happiness. So this isn't a good idea that I'm sharing. It's obviously a good idea that's been shared for centuries. I just don't think enough people test it out, see how well it is. But it's funny in life how good things that are good for us, sometimes we don't actually implement into our lives. And one of the things that you and I are trying to do, that I want to talk about humbly, is trying to do it on a bigger scale. Like you just said, we've got toys, we have skills in the outdoors, we have the ability to get people out there and show them an adventure that not many people, can do in short order. We have this stuff in our garage. And so Wishes for Warriors, something you and I got involved in. It's an amazing non-for-profit here in Eagle, Idaho. And they basically take warriors that have, had some kind of trauma due to war, due to service, whether it's mental, physical, both, and get them out adventuring in life. And boy, what a perfect fit for you and I to get involved in something like that. We've now had a couple years where we put on a razor ride, and you want to talk about getting people out there and feeling good in the outdoors. Holy shnikey, that's a good time, huh?
Yeah, and I've done, over the years, especially with hockey, we've done a lot of volunteer work, giving back to communities and stuff like that, which was awesome, and it creates a little bit of drive to do more. But putting this Wishes to Warriors ride together, and the fun that we had after that first year, when I went back and looked at the photos and got to see, I have such a respect for the people that sign up for the military and sign their lives away. I just can't imagine, because I know I didn't do it. I have my own selfish drive for hockey and whatever, so I can't imagine doing that and serving. And I have such a respect for those people that giving back to them was unbelievable. The thought of it was awesome. And then once we did it, I could not believe, just looking back on those pictures and the friendships we've made and the Instagram chats and stuff that go back and forth, absolutely amazing. And to hear their stories and what they went through and to see what they went through, and oh my God, it was absolutely unreal just to see them forget about everything and just have an unbelievable time with their friends and like-minded people and just have a blast, and just forget about it all. It was truly rewarding just to sit back and look at that. And when I sit back and look at the videos and pictures that come from it, that's when it really starts sinking in, and it gives you the drive to do more.
It does. That's what I was saying earlier. If you don't believe this service to others is real, try it, because it's amazing.
And try it, and this is what I would say. Service is always different, right? And this is where when I was sitting down to do this, and I was starting to look at, okay, what are we going to do? There's nothing wrong with going and serving at a kitchen or doing something like that. But if that doesn't excite you and that's not fun to you, and that's going to keep you from giving back, I started looking at stuff that I like to do, and then found an organization that does that and reached out to them, like we did with Wishes of Warriors. We started what do we like to do? We like to razor ride. And all of a sudden we start Googling and looking there's a place in town, and they hunt, they fish, they ride. So there's got to be something in your lane, I believe, for everybody. That's their passion, that there's people that also have that passion also that you can give back to. And it's going to be fun for you and excite you to do more, because if you go do something that's not fun, or you find boring or whatever it is, then yes, there's that feeling good that you did something, but if it doesn't excite you to keep doing more, it's never going to escalate to, I think, some of the points we're going to get to here with the Wishes for Warriors ride and the Bradley Project and the potential of what, we're really trying to do here.
Yeah. I think that was really, really well said. Pick something that's in your lane. Pick something that excites you. If serving others at a soup kitchen is your deal, do it. That's phenomenal. If it's working with older adults, elderly, do it. If it's working with young kids, do it. If you're an ex-soccer player, get some kids out on a field. Next time you and your buddies are going turkey hunting and you know of a kid at church, take them. That 3-4 hours of taking a kid turkey hunting can change their life forever. Or, in this case, we're talking about fishing. How many lives we've changed by just throwing that kid in the back of our truck, and the next minute, they're tying flies and they're sending us pictures and getting their first 5 weight. And so it's a special deal for sure. And I'm really excited about the steelhead fishing trip that we're putting together for the Warriors. That will be our third annual Razor Ride, our first annual steelhead fishing trip there on the Salmon River. And so just continue to grow this, obviously keep our listeners, up to speed on the different things that we're doing, how they can help out in the future or even be a part of it. And I know we've got people listening that have served in the military, that maybe even themselves would like to be a part of the Wishes for Warriors as someone who's out there adventuring with these guys or a mentor for them. And we'd love to hook you guys up with them. Just have to reach out to us and we'll make the connection. Plan on having Bam here on the podcast here in the near future to talk about that as well. But I think the message that we're getting here, and to kind of tie it back, this is a fishing podcast, but it's also a crushing life podcast. And that is, taking what it is that you're doing in life. I really like how you said that, and taking a passion that's in your lane and getting other people involved in it that is going to help inspire them, change their life in some way. It's only a win-win for everybody. And certainly don't want to get into all of the weird shit that's going on in the world today, but that is something that's right in front of us. We love to spend hours and hours on our Facebook and Instagram and sit and talk about the woes of the world and how could we. That time could be such better spent, just out in the outdoors, calling up a friend, getting someone out there to the river and exploring the different opportunities that fishing, the communication that happens to and from the river, just the meditative, contemplative state that you have while you're in the river. And what a great place to think things out in an environment, whether you're still water fishing on a lake or whether you're some mountain stream. It doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, there really isn't a better place to figure out life, and there isn't a better place to serve, and get people out there. So it's been a huge part of my life.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's awesome. I think when you get into your own thing, you don't realize how many people, I talk to people back home, and I'm like, oh, razor, what's a razor? Right. There's people that have no experience in some of the stuff that we do. So I'm sure there's people out there, listeners out there, that do things that, they think it's normal, that somebody would love to have that experience, and now you're going to open up their eyes to a whole new world that you just assumed everybody kind of knew about. I just assumed because that Razor Ride, everybody knows about razors, and people are like, well, what is that? And they got to show them. They're like, oh, UTV kind of thing, so like a golf cart thing, like they have no idea. Right. So I think a lot of people, if you're looking at ways to serve, start looking at that. There's people that, you probably do some cool stuff that you just assume everybody knows, that probably people have no idea or never experienced that would open up their eyes to, especially if it's kids that are having trouble. It could open up their eyes to a whole new path in life that they never knew about or never been exposed to. Because some of that exposure for some kids gets pretty limited,
And for those listening saying, gosh, well, where would I find these kids? Where would I find these opportunities? The same place that you and I are finding them. Local churches are filled with kids who are looking for an opportunity to do on a Saturday. There's many Wishes for Warriors, or groups like that are looking for people. There's all kinds of even the Boys and Girls Clubs are looking for other options and opportunities for people to do. So honestly, you can't swing a dead cat if you're paying attention and not find an opportunity to serve, especially in this day and age.
And it's way easier than I thought. That very first Wishes Ride, it was literally like, hey, I got 10 buddies that all have razors. Do you got people that want to come? And we just did what we normally do. We'd go to a normal meetup. Like, there was nothing out of the norm that took all this extra setup. Like, we did some extra shirts, and we did, but it can be simple. It can be easy. You can use what you have and just invite some people to come along. That's
absolutely. So, when we take those kids fishing, I hear all the time, I don't have. We do. We've got waders, we've got boots, we've got extra rods, we've got reels, and the next thing you know, we're out there fishing, no excuses, and, helping them also, get the gear that they're going to need so that they can, do this on a full-time basis and not have to borrow stuff. But yeah, there's no excuses. We all have the extra stuff and can get people out there, and I love it. I love taking people who don't know how to fish, don't have the gear, and have had that be kind of the hindrance. And I get that. You don't want to go drop, a few hundred to a few $1,000s on a new sport. It is nice to be able to go out there and do. So let's provide that opportunity. And we have all those rods and reels and waders and boots and bikes and bows and guns and clay pigeons. There's certainly lots of opportunity for us to serve.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, hey, man, I don't want to, there's so much that we could talk about. We got lots of cool stuff coming up in the pipeline with the Badley Project, which is another thing that you and I are involved in. And in this case, we're helping out young kids that are kind of come from challenging lives. And the whole purpose of this is to show them, we're certainly not Bible thumpers, but, guys that do live their lives guided by God to the best of our abilities, and to show these kids what it looks like to live a life, your youth pastor is definitely cool. But I think it's hard for kids to kind of see themselves as that individual. And you and I are going to go out there with our group of people and, show them what it really means to get out there, live life, persevere. We've all come from these different stories, but you are in control of tomorrow. And that's kind of the message that we're bringing to these guys. So we got lots of fun stories coming our way. We got our first ride coming up in October. So we'll be able to go and talk about that. And then we got a fishing trip planned as well. So, I really, really appreciate you coming on, man. It means a lot to me. I think that you're a stud. I love your heart and always ready to serve, always up to help people out. You got a fucking attitude that is just awesome, and you got a huge heart. So I value you as a friendship, and I love going out there and adventuring with you. I look forward to having you on this show and many, many times talking about our service projects and our adventures.
Well, I appreciate you having me and giving me a chance to speak. And I mean, I'm so excited for what we're doing and what's going to happen in the future. We've done so much cool stuff already. I just can't wait to keep blowing this up and keep going forward. And getting to do it with one of your best friends is also an awesome experience too. So I just can't thank you enough, and look forward to many more adventures. And hopefully this helps inspire people to get out there and give back too.
It's easy. I mean, we're normal guys, even your professional career, which I think is amazing. People expect, an NHLer with 15 years to come on and give us advice. You're like, it's such a podium that you're like, it sounds good, but that's not me. Where, you did make it to the pros. It wasn't the NHL, but it was an amazing place to be. But you're still an average guy that still has to get up every day and make shit happen. And then you got me, who had a different path. And here we are, best of buddies from completely different countries, completely different paths, hanging out with the same intentions. And that's just to serve and to give back and to be the best that we can every day for our families, for our jobs, for ourselves. Show up and crush shit no matter what it is that we're doing. So I appreciate you, man. And we'll talk again. More fishing next time on one of our fishing adventures, but I love bringing you service and persevering.
Thanks a lot, Oak. Really appreciate it. Let's go rip some lips soon.